All right, part two of my basement wall situation. So one thing I did is I cut some inspection ports into the drywall to see what in the world's going on behind there. And what I found on this one was that there's a crack there. Now, this wall is kind of an L shape. It comes down, there's about a 2 foot section right here and goes over. It's just the way that the house is laid out. I'm not sure why they did that, why they just make it an exact rectangle versus having this little L and losing some square footage right there for the rest of the house. I don't know why, but it's just the way they did it. Anyway, so if it's leaning, you almost got to figure there's gonna be a crack somewhere. So this was very expected. Now, what I found is that it looks to me that at some point it cracked, they filled it in with something, who knows, years ago probably is my guess. And then for some reason, there's this one spot right here that's just about a 1/2 inch that you can actually look back inside there with a flashlight and see dirt and stuff. It's a little cold air blowing out of it. But the rest of it's not that bad. It's only, maybe 1/8 inch crack. But again, I think it might have been filled at some point and then it cracked another 1/8 of an inch. I'm not sure. But that's what I found there. And then I'm gonna give you some perspective of where the other port's at. So I cut a hole here and looked inside there. And what I can see is that there's a crack, a horizontal crack that way. And not horrible, but it's there. And then I can also tell, although it's hard to measure, that the wall around the center area here is bulged in. I don't know how much leaning there is. I don't know. It's hard to measure with this drywall in the way, but it is bowing in too, based on what I can see way down inside there. Probably can't see it, and then that way, probably roughly the same amount. So, I can see there's movement going on the whole length of this 50-foot wall, both the finished area and the non-finished. So, what I've done at the time being is I've taken tons of measurements around here. You can see some of these marks to measure the current status of some of these cracks. I've taken all kinds of laser measurements to see how far off things are, leaning wise, probably to a 1/16 of an inch everywhere, so I can monitor that over the years. So I've got like I said, tons of recordings and measurements of where we're at the moment. But I started working with a couple different home solutions companies to see what can be done here. And my worst fear is having to dig out the whole back side of the house, tear out a concrete patio, excavate all that. And even then, I'm not sure what you can do other than put better fill back that doesn't expand as much. But when I brought both companies in, they both told me the same thing, is that this is an ideal candidate for what they call helical tiebacks, which are, tieback is where you go back into the dirt. These are a type that they're gonna cut a hole into the block and put it in from this side. So there's no excavation on the outside. They have this hydraulic machine that drives it down in there. They're saying somewhere between 12 to 30 feet out. Basically they go until they hit inactive soil is what they call it, which basically that means getting past where it was excavated for the house. So depending on how far out they excavated, I'm thinking it's gonna be on the lesser end. I know they didn't excavate 30 feet out, but probably closer to that 12 to 15 range. You're gonna run these down through there. And what they came up with is one company quoted me 8 tiebacks. One of them told me 10, and then we worked together and got down to 9. So they stretched their dimensions a little bit because I had the I-beams in there on the one side. They said that they can justify having a little bit more spacing in between each tieback there, which saves me some money. So that's the current situation. I went with the company that's going to do 9. I got a lot better feeling about them in terms of their expertise and their reputation and all that. It's going to be a little bit more than the 8, but I'm getting an extra tieback. So what's going to happen is I'm on a waiting list for about 2 months out at this point. But sometime over the next 2 months, I'm going to cut more holes in this drywall to give them access. They're probably going to put one like around here, about 3 feet, one in the middle, maybe close to where this hole is, one here, and then there'll be one here, and then one behind this refrigerator. So I got to cut about 3 by 3 holes in there or something to give them access. They'll get in there, chip a hole out, get the helical tieback in there, run it through, and then put a plate on it, and then tighten those bolts down really tight. They can put, I'm not sure exactly, 10,000 pounds of force on each one, something like that. Not foot-pounds, but actual tensile strength, I guess you could say, from the tieback. And all that's going to basically hold the wall back from moving further. We don't anticipate it's going to be able to push the wall back. I almost don't want it to, because at this point it would probably cause more issues with my flooring upstairs and crack everything, even if you could push it back. And basically it's not really hurting anything the way it is. If it would keep getting worse, you could have some potential there of something collapsing or something. But based on all the measurements I've taken and the reading I've done, the current situation isn't so bad that we need to fix it. We just need to make sure it doesn't get worse over the years. One of my dilemmas with this is that I'm getting ready to build the garage this summer on the other side of this wall, which will actually be over here. The corner of the garage will almost meet up with the corner of the house here. It'll be about 4 or 5 feet that way. So the garage is gonna be over here. It's not gonna be behind this wall. But what I was concerned with is if this doesn't work, like say for instance, one of the risks here is that they hit bedrock or just rock in general. And you can't, if you hit a rock before you hit good soil, it can't put enough pressure on it to do any good. So, there's still potential for having to do some excavation out here or something. They think the risk is fairly low of that. But at the same time, I'd like to know that this is going to be the solution before I redo all this outside, because this section here is going to right now it's got wood deck on the outside in front of this wall. It's going to get about a 10 foot by 17 foot concrete pad added to that with drainage and everything, getting water away from that wall, which is going to be good to help this situation. But I don't want to get that concrete pad in there just to find out that these tiebacks don't work and we need to excavate all that. Now I got to chip all that out. The garage is in the way now. We got to dig all that back out, bring better fill in or whatever we're going to do, and then re-concrete it and all that. So I really just decided I like to get this out of the way before the garage build. So even though it's very expensive and it's in the middle of an expensive garage build, I really hate to do it, but I'd rather know now that this is done and works, or and still have a little bit of time before the garage, but to possibly try to do something different about it. So anyway, that's the plan. I can show you real quick over here. Those post-it notes are roughly where they're thinking the tiebacks over here will be. So there'll be 4 on this side in between the beams. Like I said, we're going to leave those in place. And then 1 down there. One of my concerns has still yet to be determined is, I don't have any standing water in the basement, but I've got a lot of what they call efflorescence, which is this stuff on the wall here, just unsightly, more or less. It's like minerals coming through from moisture. And one of the concerns is when they put this tie back in, is now there's a hole there and it could leak, at which point I may have to get a waterproofing system put in, which is just more cost. But basically they would run like a ditch down the side of the wall, and the water would run down here, put a sump pump in over here, run it up and tie it into the sewer line here. But I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm hoping that they get it high enough that it doesn't cause enough problem, or maybe just a minor leak when it rains a lot, something like that we can at least get by with for now. Maybe want to seal it from the inside, not sure, but that is an additional risk item that I'm thinking about. Here you can see some additional cracking that's happened in the past, I'm going to say 4 years, because I believe this wall was painted in the past 4 years, and I think from looking at it, this crack has happened since. So I am seeing some signs that it is still moving, but I think the majority of this has happened over the past 50 years. House was built in 1968. It's probably started from day one and just slowly moved. And you think about how long 50 years is. We hadn't even landed on the moon at that point. And that's a very slow movement. You're talking thousandths of an inch a year, maybe 20 thousandths a year or something like that to get to this point. So I think it's moving very slowly, but I do think it is still moving, and it probably needs something done about it. And it's just time to do it based on all my considerations with the garage and all that. So I do have to get the wall over there ready, move all that furniture out the way, but it won't be too intense labor-wise on my end. Just mostly money is what it boils down to at this point. And again, the last thing I want to deal with in the middle of this garage build, and I really wish the home inspector would have noticed this, and maybe I could get some money off the house, or I would have noticed it. Of course, if I'm ever looking at a house again, I will for sure be looking at something like this. Just hadn't even crossed my mind if something like this could happen with a house. I just never had any experience with it and didn't even think to look. So anyway, that's a pretty good summary of what's going on here and what my game plan is. Hopefully in the next few months I'll have a better idea of how this tieback system works, and my leaks, if I get any leaks or hitting rock, anything like that. But anyway, that's it.